So here's an interesting question. I just ran to the mall to get something, and it's 2021. We're having another surge of COVID. Um, they call the Omicron variant. But um, what I was curious about is, our mall is dead. Um, and as I quickly ran into the store because I needed to get something. It's like an in and out sort of thing. Um, Part of me thinks that malls, a portion of it is going to die, in terms of, that they're not like they used to be. However, walking around and looking at people, um, I I don't think that they're dead. I think that they're a long ways from dead. Um, and the reason is that people like to to do things in groups together, and that's just kind of human nature. Now, do I think the nature of what a mall is going to look like, is that going to die? Sorry, I'm just getting into my car. Um, is the nature of what a mall is going to look like, is that going to change? Absolutely. I think that's the distinction that I'm going to play out here, is that the way that we think about what a mall is, that sort of behavior of it, is not going to be like what we think about now. And I think that there is actually some real significant room, um, for this type of experience, where there's a hybrid sort of version of what it means to be in a mall and online, right? We have the online shopping is only going to grow. It's only going to be a more significant portion of what we do. But I think the nature of what it looks like, to do, a mall, for example, is going to be a lot different. I think, um, having overwhelming amounts of goods at the store, I don't think that that is useful sort of, I don't think that that provides a good consumer experience, where it's just like you're just buying with a lot of stuff sitting there. I think that that makes things overwhelming. It's kind of cluttered, all of those kind of things. However, if you create an experience that is unique and interesting, and I've said this for years, because we're seeing a gradual trend there. I think some places kind of get it. The Apple iStore, or whatever it's called, the Apple Store. Um, they kind of get it, of creating an experience, but I'm thinking even something beyond that, where um, you know, and Tesla does a good job of this, where it's just really, and not really even Tesla does a good job of this, because it's kind of really open and kind of um, boring. But, creating an experience where you go and they have free coffee, free good coffee, and you kind of go there and you just hang out, and you get an iPad, for example, or whatever pad you want to use, something. And you kind of flip through both the combination of online, um, as well as being able to see things with in with your fingers and stuff. It might not be your size, but having one or two of those things where you kind of sample and look at, but also have that combination of flipping through in sort of a virtual augmented reality sense, where you can see maybe what it might be like in your home. Have a picture of your home, and it's augmented reality, and it sort of feels, you just get a good sense of what it is, and you have extra features that can pop up. Or something that you go in and you put on a pair of glasses that have augmented reality that's built into it, and you have this sort of all this information that you can come to, like an experience like that. where it's very immersive, but also like very social. And then the other thing to think about that you could do is, people love free. People love the feeling of getting a good deal. Having coffee and cookies and those kind of things are really big to get people into a store. And what you don't realize is that once you build this sort of social experience, it really does create something, right? It creates something. So I see malls going there, and I also see a lot of more entertainment kind of setups where it's just very entertaining to go to these things. But you know, that being said, overlapping on that, we need to think about in a world of what it means to shop in closed spaces, in a world of increasingly more viruses and more diseases that are going to spread like this. This is the one of what we've been fortunate for many years of not having something spread. But if you just think of random mutation with the number of people that we have, things are going to spread, and we have to be aware of that. We have to think about what that might be in an environment of in congregated settings. That's harder for me to imagine what that looks like. That might be increased ventilation. Like, definitely that's a big thing. Increased ventilation, having the possibility of um, more space and sort of spread outness, but also if people want to congregate, they can. Um, Having, I'm not sure, increased robots that are cleaning things. Increasingly, it becomes more important, like thinking about cleanliness. Um, things like that, I think, are going to be important to it. So thinking that sort of combination of where we can go. Now, all of this is very much like, 10 to 20 years out, but you could see that there is a lot more, both the social aspects and community aspects, but also building in, okay, given that we love to congregate together, that's what it means to be human. We're social beings. What does that look like in in an increasing sort of dense environment where we have density? And density is, at the end of the day, that's really what's spreading us, right? We just have population. And how we can balance those two, and how we can make it feel immersive, more fun, more interesting. I think that is where malls are going to go to. I think the way that we conceive of them now is they're actually kind of boring, and they're actually pretty consumer centric. I think moving less, for sure they'll be consumer centric, right? Like that's their goal, but less towards feeling consumer centric and more feeling like community spaces. A store that does this pretty well, is Lululemon. Does that very well in terms of making more of a community space, where people come together, and it feels like it's community. So maybe it might be, in the mall you have free gym classes, right? Or gym equipment, fitness equipment that you can go to, and that's part of your thing. Or that that you show movies, like that, for free or whatnot, something, where it becomes an experience where people are enjoying it. It is a thing that they want to congregate towards. It is just their, it's what they do, right? And we have to recognize some of those things, look to see where behavior is changing. um, Coffee is a really big thing. Stimulants are a really big thing. Less on the, alcohol is still an important thing, but it's becoming maybe increasingly, I don't know, it is still a really big thing, right? Thinking about where behavior is shifting towards, um, fitness, um, older people, looking at trends where there's going to be increasing more older people for a while, and looking to see what brings those folks in, because some of them actually do purchase a significant portion. But thinking about all these kind of things together is an interesting way to see where we're going to move, malls. I think there's going to be a heck of a lot less than them, less than what they currently have in terms of the space that they take up, right? Like they're very heavy in terms of the consumption of space and all those kind of things. But what it's going to feel like is going to be a lot more, like community centric, and they might substitute for example, they might substitute for some other aspects of community that are declining in society. That we don't necessarily, that there are definitely shifts going on in different areas of society. So thinking about those, I think, is important, right? Or um, making part of a mall a community center, and making it part of, like, this is where you rent out space, or just have space where you could just hang out and do your thing, play games or whatever, right? Like those kind of things. Or gymnasium, right? Having a gymnasium, free gymnasium that's part of it, where people go. That's actually a really important thing that I'm sort of thinking through now. If you have a community space that is, oriented towards, just community, recreation, right? Where it's a community space where, there might be volleyball nets, there might be, basketball courts, all these kind of things that are part of it. But then, there's stores that are around it, and maybe some, coffee shops or something like that are around it, where people just kind of hang out. That is, I think, where malls are going to move towards, much more community centric, social centric, but also within the realm of this possibility of increasingly more viruses, sort of possibilities of pandemics, and also, threats because of congregation. Um, there is threats to congregating together. It's not just viruses, but other different things. We have to think about those, right? And what that means, right? That, particularly in the United States, has some really unusual threats due to how, how it's sort of set up, in terms of, um, various different rights and things like that are part of, the United States. So thinking about all those together, um, we have to sort of think about what it means to be in a mall and what a mall is going to look like. I don't think it's dead. I think people enjoy it, but I think the way that it's going to look like is different in the future. And it's going to leverage a heck of a lot more of, um, a lot more of the online component as sort of an augmented reality kind of feel, but also very much community centric. I think that's where it's going to go to. So that's it. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.